Great. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Brandy, for being with us. I think I'm going to ask our panelists to introduce themselves. They're all very accomplished state legislators and have their own passion in this arena. And I think we'll start with Senator Warnick, and then go to Mary, and on to Tom Dent. So I'd like, you've heard a lot today, and I think our main question here is after what are you passionate about, and what is your role in the legislature? From what you've heard today, what do you think could or should and could be done to assist us both in building more collaborative opportunities for prevention and for rapid response to mussels? So let's start with Senator Warnick.
Thank you, Matt. First of all, I want to say thank you for putting this together. I am probably the least knowledgeable in the room about this issue, but I have a passion for keeping our waterways open, keeping our I own an irrigated farm in Moses Lake, and I hope to heck we never have these things come down the Columbia River to where we get our water from. I first heard about these quagga mussels and what's it called? Zebra. I heard from Senator Honeyford. Does anybody remember Senator Honeyford? Okay. He was my mentor in a lot of ways in the Senate Republican caucus. Really enjoyed that man. Some people called him Senator No. Some of us called him Honey Bear because we knew him better. But he was passionate about zebra mussels and quagga mussels. I can't even tell what they are. But what he did was he brought a pipe, and it was a connection to the legislature that had been infected by those things. I don't know where he got it, but it was eye-opening. What could happen if they got into our irrigation systems? And, I live now in Grant County, and we also have the Columbia River dams. We have two of them that provide our power, our irrigation, and recreation. And I can't imagine if something happened to those dams to gum up the works, if you will. And the sample that Senator Honeyford brought to us was just eye-opening. So I think I've always been on, since I was elected, I've been in the House Ag Committee and the Senate Ag Committee. I've also been on the Capital Budget Committee for most of that time. Looking at some of these slides, and I wish I could have listened to the whole day, but we just couldn't make it. But looking at some of those slides, I think Washington State needs to step up. If there's federal dollars, federal grants, Washington State needs to step up because our numbers are way down there. So that will be part of my role, I think, to get more funding from Washington State through the capital budget.
Thank you. This has been an amazing day, and it does confirm for me, having been the person that crashed the party with Senator Honeyford, that when you're working on projects like this, you work on them programmatically. So the initial step was to elevate the concern, and especially with the help of PNWR and Washington State Department of Fish and Wildlife. This has been a tremendous step forward, a leap forward for our state, from really having a dog and a passionate person running the dog to now a full-on programmatic response, bringing all of the partners together. The things that I have learned today is, one, the desire of our tribal community to work together and be included at every level of the process. And that's very hopeful to me. And I know that I've had lots of conversations over the last year since the first detection in Idaho with people on a casual basis, but would want to have it be reciprocal as well, that my doors are always open. My phone is generally on. I will return calls, and I will drive over to Lapway or whatever to see the hatcheries or to sit down with you. I wrote in my notes early in the day that I would love to just sit at the listening circle at Chief Timothy and just sit in the quiet with my friends from the tribal partners in Nez Perce tribe and others, and just have a more open conversation, because that way we can clear up any misunderstandings of things I might have said that was intemperate, and also for me to express to you to hear from you some of your concerns, and to try and find that commonality in a place that was meant specifically for that kind of community. So that was something I wrote down. And then the other thing is that where we're at now, I loved the federal partner panel, and literally one of the things that Jack Silzel told me in like 2001, 2002, when the Farm Bill was going through, he said that getting things to move in the federal government, you might as well put a stake in the ground to see motion forward. And we don't have time for that. And hearing the federal partners give us real insight into the permitting and NEPA process and the challenges that our federal partners face in that place is our next great challenge in being expeditious in responding preemptively, so that we can meet the goals of the tribal partners and us, that we don't let this discovery become an infestation. And it can happen so quickly. And I imagine it like a thistle or a dandelion head, and you blow it and it's just gone and you can't catch it. And so I would hope that we could really hone in on those pieces to make this effective response very quickly. And I appreciate your concerns about the changes of everything that's going to happen in the next couple of months. But I still think that there's potential to still move forward regardless of what happens in the next 2 months, is how the new administration lays out the playing field. I think there's enough institutional memory in the agencies that we can do good work together regardless of who's in the White House. So thank you so much for educating me on all of this. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, Representative Dye. Thank you, Matt, for having us here. I appreciate it. And so you've asked 3 questions here. What are our passions, the role in the legislature, and possible solutions? Is that correct? If you want to hear all my passions, you might as well pull up a pillow, because I'll be here till midnight. Okay. Thank you, Senator. I appreciate your support. Senator Warnick is my seatmate. We both represent the 13th district. So I always say that I'm her driver. So, but I am passionate about a lot of things, but agriculture is on top of the list. It truly is. And I currently serve as the ranking member on the House Agriculture and Natural Resources Committee. And I've served on that committee since I first took office in 2015. So, and I'm extremely proud to be there. And that's where I want to be. It was one of my goals in the legislature, to be there. So I've heard a lot of interesting things today. I think some things that I didn't know, and I too first learned about mussels from Senator Honeyford. I think I was at the same meeting that Senator Warnick was at when he brought that pipe in, and it was very eye-opening to what they could be. And you know, we hear about them in a lot of different information meetings. And one of the things I heard today was, well, outreach, education. So, I go to a lot of different meetings like this, and we hear about mussels, and we learn a little bit more. And then it seemed like we go on home, and there's so much on our plate that we don't really have. We don't take an active role in how we're going to move this solution forward, or what a solution even looks like. But and at the River Governance Committee that I'm on from CSG West, we talked about this back in, I think that was in August or September when we were at that meeting, and it was another similar thing. We talked about the mussels and the challenges that we have with them, and how we need to kind of be looking at that in a little deeper dive into that issue. And so, here we are today, and I'm not going to say that I'm an expert on mussels. I'm not, okay, not even. But I do know the one thing that we could start taking a look at, and what happens is when we start looking for solutions, when we have Fish and Wildlife, we have Department of Agriculture, we have, Bureau of Reclamation, we have all these different agencies that are looking at this problem. And they're all looking at this problem in their individual silos. And sometimes that impedes finding a solution. And personally, I believe that we should be all working together. And we should all be in the same room to break down those silos, so we know what the left hand and the right hand is doing. And that's how I believe we can start finding solution that could work. We can start working together. We don't have to reinvent the wheel, and as both my two colleagues are sitting up here with me today know that I'm passionate about bringing people into the room, and let's see if we can find a solution. Let's work together, because there's not a single one of us in this room that has the answer. But collectively, we might. I counted 36 people here. I think collectively we might come up with some answers, some ideas, something to go try. And we also have tried some things, and I know we've done things that I don't know, but maybe and we can start putting that together and see how we can move that forward. But, we got basically 5 states that are challenged at the moment, and we should be pulling together. We do need to have some kind of if we brought these 5 states together into some kind of a study group, task force, however you could do it, but with legislative approval. So then we could have access to legislative appropriation through the legislature to fund these groups. And then we can start looking to this federal government for help, or maybe matching funds, or however, I don't know everything that's out there. But if we do that, if we make it an official committee with 5 states, now we can start rolling, and we can start coming up with some real money. And so how do we do that? I mean, well, first we have to have the idea, and I think the idea is there. But what is our major issue here? In my mind, our major issue that we have with this possible infestation of mussels is it could impede food security, okay? And that's a big deal in this world. We don't have any too much food out there. I think we have like 90 days reserve, world reserve, food reserve, something like that. That's not much if you think about it. And you take something like this and you dive into irrigated agriculture. Irrigated agriculture in the state of Washington is about 20% of our agriculture, and it produces 75% of our food in the state of Washington. Well, that's kind of a big deal. And you start taking that away, and that's going to make a difference on those world food reserves. And you add the other 4 states in there, and you're talking something, okay? And I think we need to take a look at that. I think it's serious. I think it's something we need to think about doing today, not next week, not next year, not next session, not after the next election. But I think we should start soon, like today. And I think that's what you're here for. And I agree with Senator Warnick. I wish we could have been here earlier, but sometimes we just have so much on our plate we can't do everything. But I will tell you this: on our way home tonight, Senator Warnick and I are going to have a conversation about how we can craft something to make it look like we can move this forward. So I can give you that today. So anyway, thank you again for having us. Appreciate it. It's good to see all you folks.
Well, thank you so much, Tom. Let's go to Representative Brandy Donaghy. And Brandy, I know you're on Cindy Ryu's committee, and you're vice chair, I think. And I'd like to know your thoughts on what you've heard today and what you think could be done to make us better prepared for prevention and for an outbreak of quagga zebra mussels in Washington State?
I think probably one of the things that we have a tendency, we talk about how we're talking with each other, how we're working with tribes, how we're working with other stakeholders, groups that have that already have a hand in the process. But I think one of the things that we're in a space that we lack sometimes is actually public education. Because yes, it's going to take everybody working together. It's going to take all of our groups being able to communicate and kind of remove some barriers to make sure that we are sharing resources, not duplicating efforts, making sure that we're doing everything we can as quickly and as effectively as possible. But it's also a reality, I think, that people in the general public can undo a lot of the work that we try to do, if that makes sense. So making sure that the general public, people who use the waters, I'm sure there's been plenty of talk about the zebra mussels coming in on aquarium supplies and such, people who dump their aquariums into bodies of water. All of those things will have an impact regardless of anything else we're doing. And so I really think public education is also going to be key in making sure that we can get everything together and be able to move forward without having some kind of catalyst from outside the current structure that we're working within, kind of foul everything up for us.
Okay, let's. I'll look forward to your actions in the legislature on this regard, because this is a new pathway that's recently been seen coming into our state. So thanks for your leadership, Brandy, and I think it's really important to look at that, and also what people do with aquarium species. Let me turn back to the panel and say, maybe I'll ask Tom here. You had success in working on emergency response fund for animal diseases and plant infestations. Do you think that kind of approach could be useful in this situation?
Yeah, absolutely. We do need to look at. I heard a question earlier about how quickly can we respond if we find an issue in a harbor or something, and I think we have to respond now. It's similar to the Department of Agriculture. If there's a drift complaint from a spray operation, they respond now. Maybe tomorrow at the latest, but they're there. And I think we need to do that. We need to have an emergency response that can move quickly to see that because time is of the essence. If you find one of these things in the water, and I heard earlier, the one thing I heard was how quickly it could move downstream, from in the Snake River, and just, we can go miles, and we need to be there. The quicker we get there, the more we can protect the waters downstream. So I think that having that emergency response would be probably one of the better things we could do initially as we learn what prevention looks like. I'm not sure we absolutely know what prevention looks like. Right now we're trying to stop an infestation, but what does true prevention look like? And as we go there, we need to be able to respond quickly.
And Representative Dye, you laid out a pretty clear list of things that were attached to the 1.8 million that you requested for this year. Now, can you talk about that, or how can the legislature help the Washington State Department of Fish and Wildlife actually implement what you think needs to be done, because this is an emergency?
Right. So first of all, I would say that they far exceeded my wildest expectations, and I can't thank them enough. I know that I didn't intend to be quite so prescriptive, but on the other hand, I'm really grateful that you were patient and really embraced the vision of what I had in mind. I would say that, I'm looking at it in two ways. I'm looking at the public facing piece of the pie, right? So human behavior and how do you incentivize people to really feel invested in being a participant in the solution? And so that's why I laid out this vision of how do we make the inspection stations be an opportunity for the voting public to really feel like they're participating in doing the right thing and helping instead of hurting things and being informed about it. And so it's the idea of making the experience meaningful and having the dog and the officer there working together. I've now suggested a coffee kiosk and some restroom facilities and, just this public facing thing. But then on the other side, I think that ramping up the detection, the detection systems and getting more personnel. But now I would be even more prescriptive in saying that we also need to really prioritize the Snake River, the lower Snake River, and the confluence, and working with our Idaho partners all the way from Hell's Canyon, all the way to the lower Granite Pool, and really focusing on those primary spaces and how we can, in terms of prevention coming up from Oregon at Umatilla and those. But, let's focus on where those villagers, when we were meeting last spring, we were talking about the fact that having an adult is a bad thing, meaning that villagers could have been moving through the system for quite some time. We don't know. And so I take it, being, a farmer, well, it is most likely, highly probable, that we will find things in the river someplace else downstream. And so we should be prioritizing and targeting. And I have, how do we make that work for the public and for us to make an effective response in anticipation to that? So back to the federal partners, the last piece that I forgot to mention is that in like September, October of 2020, there was a president sub-cabinet for water infrastructure formed, and included all of the federal partners, and the Biden administration carried that forward. It isn't a sub-cabinet level, but it is part of the administration because they stated emphatically that if that's good government. And so that mechanism is still available in response to this emergency, because everybody from our federal partners is in that cabinet. The Army Corps of Engineers and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife and the NIMS and NOAA, they're all there. And so to me, I feel like there's an opportunity there to capture the opportunity to utilize that. I know that between Bureau of Reclamation and the USDA, they were able to execute an MOU that shares each other's EIS statements. That would expedite the problems that you brought up on that you could coordinate your EIS and through an MOU, so that we could make an emergency response agreement. And I think that'd be very helpful. So these are some of the mechanisms I think that we need to do going forward. As far as the deal with our thing, I think that I was about the idea of needing research, basic research. I totally agree with that. And it's like, okay, how do we coordinate state and federal? Well, ARS, USDA ARS at WSU could be a grand resource locally to do that look into the river system right there, and have ARS scientists working with an MOU with U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and it would be a way to stretch those resources and have people on the ground to do that. So, I think we need to think out of the box and work with our people that have local knowledge. The local farming community and the tribal people often have indigenous knowledge about the habitat and how it works. And I think we can do that. So that's kind of what I'm looking at.
Terrific. Brandy, raise your hand if you're ready for some comment. Otherwise, I'll be right back to you. I want to ask Senator Warnick. We had intended to have Grant Hunter on this panel. He's unable to pipe in from Alberta, but the Alberta irrigators are a huge group, as are the BC irrigators. And as you know, as you said, you hope these things don't come down your river. Well, that river comes down from BC. And so I guess I just want to ask you, any thoughts on how we can be more effective regionally, since we've been talking all day that these things have no boundaries, and we really have each other's back. We need to know. I mean, BC Hydro just went through an election. I mean, BC government and BC Hydro has been the major funder of their inspection station, and they're in the red big time. Anyway, I don't know, but any comment?
Absolutely. It's all about collaboration. And I want to go back to what Representative Dent said. We need to be in the room. We need to have all the players in the room. And also, Representative Donaghy, I've never met you, but I want to second what she said about education, educating the general public. And we do have to collaborate. And there's one entity that, and I know they work with Fish and Wildlife, but our state patrol, our county sheriffs, our law enforcement at all levels need to be part of the solution. I was sitting in a parking lot waiting for some family just east of here, right across the Idaho border. It was in Washington, but out there you can go 60, 70, 80 miles an hour. And this pickup and boat came zipping through. Well, he didn't stop at the inspection station. And you know who stopped him? It was the state patrol. So he knew that guy should have stopped, but it was that quick that guy could have come from the Snake River, who knows, put his boat in the Columbia River, and there we would have it. So education is key, collaboration is key, and I think collaborating with our tribal partners and our Canadian folks is key. If without those collaborations, it won't work. It won't work because we can't. I said Washington needs to step up with more money, even more than what Mary was talking about. But if it's just Washington, it's not going to work. So collaboration is key. And I think our law enforcement is part of that. And I know earlier I talked to someone about working with Fish and Wildlife works with law enforcement, but they are key also. They're key to making it not happen in our lakes and rivers here in Washington.
Thank you, Senator. We'll be going to the audience here in a few moments, so think about questions that you have. Brandy, any further comments from you?
Honestly, I very, very much agree with everything Representative Dye was talking about, and also including law enforcement. And it is a fabulous idea. I think fundamentally, we're also going to have to be able to be honest, because sometimes it's very hard to admit when there have been mistakes or errors or something has slipped through. And we need to be very sure that we're all being completely honest with one another as we go through the process of working together to be able to tackle this.
Representative Donaghy, you're on the committee that handles emergency response and resilience. So I think what we're talking about here really impacts resilience in Washington State. Any comments on that?
I mean, I think that it's really, we're very much looking at, issues with our agriculture, our agricultural communities, looking at issues with power generation and everything down the line. So yeah, I mean, it would have a huge impact on our resilience and our ability to be able to from any issue because of the amount of damage these creatures can cause and other invasive species as well. So you're right, it does have a huge impact. And that's, I think, one of the reasons that we need to be I think there are a lot of areas where people get very siloed and very partisan, and this needs to be one of those spaces where that absolutely cannot happen because the goal is the same, no matter who you are, no matter what party you belong to, no matter whether you represent a city or rural areas. It all comes down to just removing all the barriers for us to be able to communicate and work effectively together.
Great, thank you so much. And certainly with all the hydroelectric power that we have in the state of Washington and the fact that server farms and AI are raising our load by 4 to 7%, we can't afford to have a couple dams out of commission for 2 to 3 weeks while we clean them out of quagga zebras. So questions from the audience. We have a roving mic. Yes. Oh, sorry.
Blaine Parker, Intertribal Fish Commission. I'd like to thank the senators and the representatives today for appearing and talking with us and listening. Some really great ideas. I'm going to ask the question. We have a new administration coming in next month, and depending on which news service you listen to or what you've heard, there's going to be some interesting changes out there. But my colleagues in federal agencies are very concerned for basic funding maintenance, let alone cuts, which often start with invasive species and work their way up. What do you folks anticipate you can do to help make sure that doesn't happen for the Columbia River Basin?
So, first of all, I would say that the task force that Raquel has been facilitating and with the work of Pinward, I think that, we have put the right people with the right expertise. I'm stunned at how much work has been done in the past and how we're bringing all that. I mean, I had no idea how much work has been accomplished, and it's a North River, South River, North Bank of the River, South Bank of the River task force, right? So Oregon, Washington, but there's a ton of resources, and I would think, just knowing from some of the members that were on the water sub-cabinet, that it will be brought back up to the sub-cabinet level. I think that right now there is elevated attention on all things Columbia Basin and Columbia River. We also have a treaty with a agreement in, a propositional agreement right now. And so there's that work left to be done. And Jill Smale crosses across the two administrations. And so I think that a lot of, obviously Dr. Petty has been working as senior staff policy advisor with Congressman Bentz. So we have all of the people that you've worked with in the past that are still in the flow of the transition. And I have a great amount of optimism that things like protecting our water infrastructure is going to continue to be a priority, just as it was in 2020 when the Trump administration left office, and the Biden administration carried a lot of those things forward. And so I don't feel like the cuts are going to be directly aimed at that. And from my standpoint, and I'm sure my colleagues would share my passion that we're going to continue to advocate strongly to the new people in the administration to focus on where the most urgent needs are. And I think ours rises to the top as the urgency of the emergency here with the discovery of the second mussel in the watershed is extremely important. And I know that they're going to hear from us. And I don't know exactly how we handle that through the state legislature, but I'm sure that there will be a lot of conversations going back and forth. I've already started texting all my friends, so that's how I'm going to do.
So all three of us on the panel have been back to that other Washington. To speak to our representatives, to the administration, she even got a signature on a flag or something. It was a map. It was a map from Trump before. So we've been back there. We understand that to sometimes advocate, you have to actually go there, and it's a bit of a travel from here to there, but if it gets down to it and we see some of that funding maybe being jeopardized, we're also working closely with our Congress people. We have a couple new ones and in Washington State, and so working with them to bend the ear of the administration. We know it works. We've had it work in the past, so I'm not afraid to get on a plane and go over there to that other Washington and speak our piece.
It's all about relationships, and relationships are so important. And as Senator Warnick said, we have relationships, and keeping up with those relationships with our members of Congress, we have to look beyond party lines. Going in, especially in an issue like this, it's a nonpartisan issue. It's such an important issue. But I know we're having administration change, and I'm heartened by some of what I see and some of the people that are being or potentially appointed into positions of importance to what we're dealing with here today. But in the state of Washington, we're having administration change as well. And I'm heartened by what is going on there. The new governor-elect is in a different party than I am, but he asked me to be on his transition team and to talk about, we're talking about the agriculture and issues along these lines, and because they want to know, and they want to know how we can make some changes. And he's concerned about things like permitting processes. Okay, which could have a lot to do if we had an infestation of mussels. And so I hear some solutions out there. I hear people that are really looking for, how do we find this solution and how do we get there and start working together? I mean, everybody in this room, we all have a different political opinion. If there's 36 people in this room, there's 72 opinions, right? Okay. But we can get there. But what's best? And find those compromises that really work, and we can do that. And I'm a little bit heartened right now because I'm beginning to hear some of that. And I have relationships, members of Congress in both parties that I work hard to maintain. And same in the state legislature. It's we work together, and we have to work together. And if we do that, I'm not concerned. Personally, I'm not concerned about what I'm seeing, sir. I don't know your name, but I really believe that we have some bright things on the horizon to look forward to.
Thank you so much, Tom. Brandy, any last words?
Yeah, I was thinking, just as working in emergency preparedness, it can be very, very difficult to get other people on board with ideas that are going to have a cost to them, that may be expensive, that we might have to jostle around priorities in order to be able to implement, but because fundamentally they'll keep people safe. And so that can be a tough thing. And I think part of what we need to be doing is making sure that we're emphasizing we're not really talking about little tiny mussels. What we're talking about is our ability to be able to generate energy. We're talking about our ability to be able to create food. It's not it's not the mussels that are an issue. I mean, they are the issue, but the problem is what they represent, and that's our inability to water, agriculture. It's our inability to generate that energy, and so we also have to make sure that when we're talking about it, we're not just talking about these mussels being invasive. It's about the complete destruction that it can lead to, and the future crisis that it would present if we are not staying on top of this as much as possible. Does that make sense?
Fantastic way to end this panel, Brandy. Thank you. You're right. And it's also about salmon and our way of life. So I think that's a good place to end. Please join me in thanking our legislative panel.